changed
Really?
since we've been here in this garden
He's
since
always
1983.
Okay.
Go,
And
Linda.
it's going to be the next year, too.
Put you on.
I just love it here. I'm happy when I'm here, and it's really fun to work in a garden and grow vegetables and be with other people so you can talk. Like a lot of times if I'm at home in my own garden, it's just me, but it's really fun to garden with other people.
You know, the people, they come to you and they introduce yourself and we tell them, you know, what we are doing it.
Here, neighbors help each other a lot. We come on Saturday, Sunday, there's 20, 30 people working together. You can learn from each other. What's good, what's bad. And that's the best part of it.
I consider you both friends of mine. You know, it goes deeper.
Yeah, I wouldn't know these
than
people if it weren't for the PPAC.
Yeah, it goes deeper than the garden itself.
Really nice to just get to know people passing by here and there and just say hi. It's really a great hobby.
This is a huge social environment here, not just their fellow gardeners that you get to know, but also the members of the community, and a lot of people around the neighborhood come through here all the time, and it's just really cool to get to know everybody and share thoughts about not just gardening, but whatever people want to talk about.
Hi, I'm Jasper. There are nearly 100 community gardens across the city of Seattle, each with their own unique plots, people, and community. I want to shed light on some of the community spaces that I felt so welcomed into. In addition to wanting to show you how cool the people of Seattle are and how much community gardens can bring to people's lives, I also want to bring attention to the idea that not everybody always feels welcomed in community spaces, and that further intentional action should be taken to help people feel more welcomed in community spaces, specifically in community garden spaces. There are 4 gardens that I'll showcase in this film. 2 of them I observed having a more white demographic of people in charge, and 2 of them being run by people of color. I also want to mention that when I visited the gardens where the demographic of the leaders was mostly white, I didn't mention that I was going to be focusing on race, because I didn't know I was going to be focused on race at the time. So I want you as the viewer to be aware that the people that I interviewed didn't realize that that was going to be the angle that I was taking in this project. This isn't to villainize anybody. This is really to spread awareness of a different perspective that I wasn't aware of before I started this project. Enjoy. First up, we have the Cesar Chavez Demo Garden. This garden is a part of the Master Gardener Foundation of King County, which is a nonprofit organization that helps to provide research-based education about urban gardening to residents. It's located in the North Beacon Hill neighborhood, and when I went to visit, they were having a fun marigold giveaway.
So today, it's kind of late in the season and the vegetable garden's kind of winding down, but back in July we planted a bunch of marigold seed in the greenhouse. Usually they have the Day of the Dead celebration in El Centro de la Raza. It ended up that they decided not to have it, so we had a big greenhouse full of probably around 400 marigolds in 4-inch pots, and so we decided we would just have a little giveaway.
Oh yeah? They just want
The marigolds were very interesting to watch, because they were just little dirt pots, and then they were little sticks, and then they were all of a sudden in 4-inch pots. And today when we opened the greenhouse, the fragrance was just immense. It was really, really amazing.
So that's kind of what we're up to today. You know, we're giving them away, or people can make donations if they want. We had a couple of vegetable giveaways earlier in the year, and it was the same thing, like donation or just take what you need.
We also have harvested veggies you're welcome to take too. We did a similar giveaway earlier this year with primarily tomatoes and some peppers and tomatillos, but it was basically a big tomato giveaway. And because we grow so much in the greenhouse, some of them are going to work out well and others not so much. And then we get as much out here as we can, but then if we have extras, we want them to go out into the world and live their full life. So, yeah.
Would you like some plants to take with you? I think that the bumblebee absolutely must have a, no, the butterfly.
Yeah. So we're all master gardeners here that lead this garden, and like I said, it's in partnership with El Centro de la Raza, so they own the land. We are definitely hoping to do more outreach in the immediate neighborhood to just really let folks know that we are here and that we're a resource for them, and that this is their garden. Like I said, any harvest that we have, we push right back out to community. So we want to grow for the community, and we want to help the community to learn, and we want the community to help us learn too. So again, any harvest goes to the El Centro de la Raza Food Bank or the Little Food Pantries. Food is a human right, and we have such a privilege to have access to this space and to be growing food here in the Beacon Hill neighborhood that we don't want these gates to close us off. We want to invite people in to share in the harvest and to share in the learning and the knowledge. I mean, anyone, come and see us. If you see somebody working in the garden, when you walk by, say hello. It's very likely we'll have the gates open and you can come on in, ask any questions you want. We allow people to take cuttings if they want to try and propagate something at home. We're just here, we're an open community space, so definitely come by and say hi anytime.
As Susie was saying, the Cesar Chavez Demo Garden is open to any and everyone to come check out. They don't have marigolds to give away all the time, but there's always something cool growing in the garden, and the master gardeners there would love to share their abundance of gardening knowledge with you. Next up, we have the Greenwood Station Pea Patch. There I got to speak with 3 of the founders of the garden and got to learn a little bit about how this charming pea patch came to be in the Greenwood neighborhood.
My name is Ronnie. I was involved I started with the first meeting that was set up at the Greenwood Senior Center. Probably over 100 people showed up because the flyer that was sent out said, "Would you like a pea patch in your neighborhood?" We did not know at the time that what they were really asking is, we need people to help re-envisioning the spaces in the park that were not yet used.
There was a process where the city reached out and wanted to get neighbors involved in having ownership in that process, and Department of Neighborhoods was kind of really the instigator of some of the grant money we got.
We were asked to run community meetings and do surveys in several languages so that we could find out what the neighborhood wanted. And it was a 4.5-year process until we got the grants based on volunteer hours and donations to get the first part of what was envisioned built, which was this pea patch.
We were filling a niche that the city couldn't afford to fill, and that is providing planning and fundraising and stuff.
And communicating with the
spaces,
greater community, holding meetings.
Yeah.
The city really didn't have a lot of staff to do that. We used to hold annual parties in the park that hundreds of people would come. They were fundraisers. We even had a movie in the rain, which wound up in the Boys and Girls Club, bless them. This is my outdoor home. I may have the messiest patch. I may occasionally get growled at, but I'm staying. I did not garden the first year of COVID because I felt very unsafe, and it turns out that I need to be very careful these days. But I came back this year because I couldn't think of not coming back. This is my outdoor home.
It was nice to meet Ian, Ronnie, and Joanna and get a little sneak peek into the Greenwood Station pea patch and its surrounding community. Also want to give a special thanks to these three for coming out in the rain. When I thanked Ronnie for it after the interview, she said that it just shows how much she cares about this garden. In addition to the Greenwood Station pea patch and the Cesar Chavez demo garden, I also visited 4 other gardens around Seattle. It stuck out to me that most of the gardeners in the pea patch network were white, and that many of the gardens were in wealthy areas. It got me thinking about the reason for this. I asked Yes Farm manager Hannah Wilson what barriers exist for BIPOC communities becoming involved at community gardens. The following excerpt is from my interview with Hannah.
There's a lot of barriers in place, and I think that's why it's so important that we're here, and it's also why it's hard. Some of the barriers that we talk about a lot are just having access to green space in a city, and especially for Black and brown folks, with the history of redlining and gentrification in the city. A lot of people used to have more access to land when they were able to own houses in the Central District or just in any area in Seattle where there was a Black or brown community. People used to be able to grow food in their backyard, and now as gentrification has displaced people and pushed people out, not only are people destabilized, but also what's coming in the place of it are these high-rise apartments that don't have green space in them or just access to green space. And we see in Seattle that there's a huge discrepancy in the amount of trees or green space in neighborhoods that have more Black and brown folks or more low-income folks versus in North Seattle where there's more wealthy white folks. There's tons of trees, there's tons of green space. And then also there's just a cultural barrier to farming itself for a lot of Black and brown folks, because there's a really painful history of slavery in this country, and now we see with a lot of Latinx folks, there's a really painful current situation with farm workers being exploited. So how do you create a healthier relationship when there's all that sort of trauma and history with working in the fields per se, and then in this city, gardening and farming has been proven to be super white. So even if people are interested in that, trying to get involved in that, they may find themselves in very white spaces that are uninviting, and just continue to perpetuate some of that trauma that we see. And then when it comes to volunteering and having free time and investing in a space like this, it requires folks to have capacity, and if folks are more low income or have a lot on their plate, and also are just trying to heal from generational trauma, they may not have capacity to come out and farm in their free time. So it really takes a lot of investment to sort of fight against all of the different barriers that are in place to just arriving at Yes Farm, I think, and finding people that look like you in a city that's very, very white. So, yeah.
Hannah helped me to realize that diversifying gardens is really a bigger issue than I at first thought. I decided to seek out gardens that seemed to be more intentional about including a wider demographic of people. I wanted to see what I could learn from those gardens about their approach to diversity. I visited the Beacon Food Forest and got the opportunity to speak to Cherry Liu, the community organizer there. The Food Forest is dedicated to building equitable food systems and stewarding the environment for the benefit of all species. The Food Forest is located just between the North Beacon Hill and South Seattle neighborhoods.
Welcome to the Beacon Food Forest. So my name is Cherry, and I'm the Community Outreach Coordinator at the Beacon Food Forest. My role is essentially to connect different organizations to the Food Forest, Indigenous and people of color, so BIPOC organizations, to come and get involved, because historically that hasn't been the case. To me, like, the garden is a sanctuary and a place of survival and thriving, and it's become like really obvious to me that a lot of people are missing that in their life. Talk about our open harvest policy, which is essentially what it sounds like. Anything can be harvested from the food forest for free. You don't need to ask permission. Like my hand, whatever, but like, this is called a chocolate berry. And this is the bee enclosure. So we have a pollinators team that's dedicated to like maintaining and taking care of bees. There was 2 honeybee colonies that were installed here earlier this year. But yeah, it's a really cool thing because they fly all over the food forest and even throughout the city, and then they come back to their home, to their queen. Food forest is not just about like cultivating a variety of plants. It's I think we kind of ignore like the human aspect of that when we're choosing plants and you know, making sure that we have, you know, this perfect design or whatever for everything, but it's really the people that influence what are planted. So this is the Helix garden. It's the Helix Giving garden, and if you look like up and down, it looks like a DNA double helix, at least with the drip irrigation. In the summertime, this is full of like veggies, tomatoes, and peppers, and things like that. And Don, who's the treasurer of the board, he stewards this area, and he has volunteers help to like plant and weed. But this is all open harvest as well. It may look like a pea patch, but it's open harvest. This is the Seattle Indian Health Board plat. So this is the first land share that we participated in. David Parasso, who leads our Native Plants Guild, gave a tour to the Seattle Indian Health Board, and he asked if they were interested in land, and they said yes, they were. So this is a very sacred plot, and I always ask them if it's okay to come onto their land. This is a medicinal plant circle that they created just at the last work party. I think it's important to recognize that we're not just like appreciating nature or like tending to nature, but we're actually part of it. And so when we tend to spaces like this, or our own home gardens, or food forests, it's really tending to ourselves.
There are a lot of exciting projects and passionate people at the Beacon Food Forest. The organization is working intentionally to promote diversity and inclusion wherever they can. Cherry and the rest of the Food Forest team are hopeful that their efforts will help create a more diverse community at the Food Forest. The final farm I'd like to showcase is Yes Farm, a community farm run by the Black Farmers Collective that works intentionally with the community to expand access to gardening, fresh produce, and outdoor space to BIPOC communities. It is located just east of I-5 near Yesler Terrace.
really love the folks that come through to Yes Farm. I feel like a lot of friendships blossom here, and the folks who come down are generally like really curious about, you know, what does like food sovereignty mean? You know, what does food justice mean? And you know, everyone brings their personal connection to it and their reason why they like even step a foot, you know, on this farm. And I really appreciate learning about that from each person. At Yes Farm, we're really trying to first build community, you know, let folks know that we're here. I'm trying to like create events where, you know, people can listen to music and eat some food, and that food is cooked by like a Black chef that is cooking produce from our farm that we grew, and just showing folks different ways to prepare healthy food and food that is like culturally relevant and like personal to them and delicious too. You know, there's a lot of produce that we grow that a lot of folks don't know even exists or how to prepare it, and so just breaking down all of those like smaller barriers too. It's not just my vision of the space, it's also like, you know, everyone who becomes involved with Yes Farm, like I want their vision to also be incorporated. I'm always trying to create workshops that are for people of color, led by people of color, so that people know that this space is built for them and that it is intended for them to feel safe and like celebrated in this space, because there's, you know, resources available in Seattle, but they may not be like catered to like Black and brown folks and make it really inaccessible. I think a lot about how like when I grew up, like I didn't really see anyone like me doing environmental work or farming. You know, I'm mixed, I'm Black, I'm non-binary, I have a disability, I'm deaf, so there's just like a lot of different intersections to my identity that I'd never seen doing environmental work or farming, and just trying to create a space where like all those things can exist, and also so just farming and building community has been like one of the big goals of Yes Farm. And then beyond that too, just like growing food and distributing it to communities, you know, one of our biggest goals for sure. I really hope that people can come to Yes Farm and take what they've learned and bring it back to their own, like, you know, home or their neighborhood or their community and do something similar, right? Like, I'm not trying to make this space the only farm or urban farm that exists. I want this to be a place where people can learn and then take it home with them.
The principle behind having a farm like Yes Farm, which is specifically for BIPOC people, says a lot about our society. Yes Farm does not exist to exclude white people, but to create a space of belonging for BIPOC farmers. That being said, I don't think that Yes Farm is able to alone fix the racial division that exists in community gardens. I wanted to know how we might help people of color feel more invited into more white garden spaces.
As you're talking, I'm thinking about like some of the farms that I visited, some of the more white farms just around Seattle. I was thinking about like the people that I've been talking to, and I'm just like, I'm wondering like if there's anything that they can do to help make those spaces more inclusive to people of color.
Yeah, I think it is a good question, and I think like the answer is easy, but it's hard to implement. I mean, I think it really is just like having the leadership be folks of color, you know, having paid staff that are folks of color, and not just, you know, having them be in the structure or system that already exists, but also allowing them to have actual leadership and help shape a more like just and like equitable way of working with the community. And, you know, I think people want to see themselves in this work, and if you just have old white people in a space, that's not super inviting. Even if they're trying to provide all this free stuff, it's like, well, I'm not really going to be in community with you at the end of the day if, you know, there's all this unlearned stuff that white people are holding, right? And, you know, not truly having conversations of, like, liberation for Black and brown folks. Like, until we get to that point, like, I don't really think that Black and brown folks are going to feel like, oh yeah, I want like a white person in leadership in a space that I'm pouring time and energy into, right? So that is sort of my answer to the question. I think also just on a larger scale, like talking about how can you engage Indigenous folks and like get their input on how you steward land that they're on or that was stolen from them. And then how do you think about how Black and brown folks can actually own land or be paid to steward land versus just trying to have them in a space for like diversity.
It was a joy for me to travel around Seattle and speak with dozens of gardeners. Becoming involved at a community garden is a great way to get outside, meet new people, and learn about nature. I felt the pride and joy that people feel about the gardens that they're a part of. And I also felt the passion that people feel to make them even better. I didn't set out to focus on race, but the more that I explored, the more unavoidable it felt to address. It would be extraordinary if everybody could feel truly welcomed into community spaces regardless of their race, color, or creed. I think that someday welcoming community spaces can be normal. But for now, intentional action to diversify community spaces seems to be a step towards fostering a truly welcoming environment for everyone. Thanks for watching.